Wood rot repair. What was that light bulb moment where it was like, we got something big here?
I only restore historic stuff. And my dad's face like, that's a thing?
What is one thing that you wish someone would have told you before you went down that path?
If you can find ways to add value through repair, you can really create something that's super profitable.
What was the other biggest mistakes home service brands make in trying to franchise?
The more you disclose, the more likely you are to sell.
What was the biggest mindset or operational shifts that you had to overcome?
The only way you are going to get anybody to buy your franchise is
Where do you see franchising going in the next few years?
right now, 40% of our franchise owners have an MBA.
Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
Terry in the new studio, buddy.
I know. How you doing, Will?
Dude, I am digging it. It's a shit show in here, everybody. For our listeners that have been with us for a while, we're in a brand new studio. And of course, with that comes all the technical difficulties of figuring out the sound, the lightings, and the echo. And after investing several $1,000s in things to dampen the noise, we're finding out that we're still having some trouble, but we will figure it out. And you know what? We sound great after 3 beers.
We sound great to ourselves.
But anyway, before we get started, of course, let me thank for you 5 out there that listen to us. Thanks to the other subscribers that popped in, Chris Thomas, For the Boys, Joel Reynoso, Thomas Campbell Jr., Rick McAllister. Thanks for subscribing. And if you get a chance, like, subscribe, hit that notification button. So Terry, we've been talking about this guy for a while. You know, he's one of my favorite people.
Yes.
Blue collar guy, came up through just a wild story and has just blossomed into this amazing entrepreneur that I get to see on LinkedIn. I'm like, oh, he's all grown up. It's so great. But no, you've obviously got to meet him before our pre-sound check today, which was a mess. And gosh, with the patience of a saint.
I know.
Today's guest is Ty McBride, and he's the founder of Preservan, which is a franchise system, fast-growing franchise, shaking up the wood rot repair industry across the U.S., and really pioneering this industry, which is really kind of cool ground level to see that growth. Ty really started in a home service repair business, working on historical homes, specializing in services, and then scaled it into a franchise. And today we're pulling back the curtain to figure out how he did it, because I'm still in disbelief. Just joking. When you get to know the guy, you'll know. But we're going to talk about the challenges. I know a lot of our listeners have questions about franchising that are in the construction trade. This is our subject matter expert, and he gets to show everybody the ropes on the pros and cons of taking the deep dive into franchising. So today, we're going to grab a drink with Ty McBride. Ty, how the hell you been, buddy?
Man, Will, it's great to be here. And Terry, it's good to meet you. I've been
Pleasure.
I've been busy. It's been a wild ride. The last several years has been a wild ride, but the last 12 months has been insane. So no, it's been pretty crazy.
Yeah, man, you were a jet setter. I mean, you've been bouncing around the country. You're making content. And by the way, really good purpose-driven content. Your company has like the coolest swag, and hopefully you're monetizing that because it's the retro logos and everything, but
It's called a franchise system, and that is absolutely how we're monetizing it.
yeah, good point. Well, hold on. So for people that don't know you and Preservan, give us the genesis of all this. Take us through the kind of how you got into this.
I'll go way back, but I'll get it caught up pretty quick. So people want to listen like the longest story ever, or at least the longest story I could tell. I've been in and around this my entire life. My grandfather was a home builder. I got my first out of high school job. I moved to the city. This is where my grandfather builds houses and more. Got a job cleaning up construction sites, job sites. I think that's the typical, family job is get a wheelbarrow and a front loader and go clean up job sites. Digging up. So I graduated in 99. I moved to OKC right after that in 2000. So I was cleaning up tornado hit job sites, So I had to dig out bricks and foundations, because my grandfather bought all these cleared lots, and I had to go clean them up. I spent a whole summer doing that. But yeah, so, I've been in and around it forever. My dad was a framer when I was young. He built a roofing business. The thing about my family is there is absolutely no nepotism. You clean job sites. And I remember telling my grandfather after that summer, I'm like, hey, I kind of think what you do is cool. And he was like, I appreciate that. And I was like, but would like to keep doing it. And he was like, Ty, you need to go to school and you need to learn how to do something else. And if after you figured all that out and you want to come back, you can.
Wait a minute. how long was the pause between like, if you want to come back, you can?
Well, yeah. Well, back then I wouldn't brag about my work ethic when I was 19. So it was a long pause. It was a long pause. It was definitely, I don't know about you, son. But so I did. I went out in the world and I went to school and I learned sales and I got to mess around with some pretty big, large ad budgets and some companies that I worked for. By the time I'd figured it out, my grandfather had decided to retire, but my dad now was in the roofing business. And I remember my dad told me very clear, I was like, Dad, I really kind of want to do something else. I've been in finance, I'm bored, I'm tired. This is not me. And my dad's like, well, Ty, I don't have a job for you, but if you want to come work with me, you can make your own job. And so he's a roofing contractor down the south side of Oklahoma City and more. And I was like, well, what does that mean? He was like, I don't know, that people need roofs. If you want to go out and tell them about it, I'll teach you how to do it. And so essentially I just got paid for what I could just create. And that was my reintroduction back into construction, back into the home service space. That was in 2011. And my dad and I are both very, very passionate people. And we both have very strong personalities. And that's a really nice way. I love my dad to death, and he's one of my heroes. But it's a really nice way to say we did not work well together. So him and I both knew it was best for me to find something else to do just a few years later. And in 2015, so now I'm on this is my 10-year anniversary. June will be my 10-year anniversary filing my first LLC. So yeah, I went and filed my first LLC because, and my dad was like, Ty, what is wrong with you? I wanted to restore old houses. That was what I'm going to go restore old houses. And I think he thought I was a romantic. And he was like, yeah, okay, son, if that's what you want to do. And then it got even worse when I told him later, after about a year of kind of messing around with that, I kind of honed in and I was like, I am going to restore historic wood windows. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to restore historic wood windows and doors. And I remember the look on his face like, that's a thing? And,
You mean you just don't rip it out, throw it in the dump trailer, and throw them in?
Yeah, we had done this job together when I was still with his company where we had got stuck on a historic preservation project through a referral, and he hated every minute of it because of all of that stuff. Like every time I'm like, oh, I got to go get a new certificate of appropriateness, and he was just all like, but I'm sitting in the front yard of this house. I'm meeting the community. I'm meeting the neighbors. I realize that there's this like unmet demand of all these people who have old houses that are having a hard time finding people who will take the time to figure out how to take care of them, that will like respect their house and not just want to gut it. Because, the folks that live in these types of houses own them because of what it says about them and because of what they believe about the community. And so, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to my marketing background kicked in that I had learned elsewhere. And I was like, ideal customer. Well, you want to build a business for your ideal customer. And I was like, well, I kind of was doing these sidewalk surveys, if you will, realized what these people needed. And I was like, I'm going to build a business around that. That's where it got kicked off. And so 2016, I really kind of committed to this window restoration thing, which was mostly doing, as you kind of started out here, mostly doing wood rot repair. Now that's mostly what you end up doing when you're doing window restoration.
Yeah. Now hold on. Wood rot repair. Because everybody wakes up every morning saying, I can't wait to do wood rot repair. So that idea obviously evolved into what you see today. So take us through that thought process. And what was that light bulb moment where it was like, whoa, we got something big here?
Yeah. Okay. So I go down this pathway to restore historic wood windows. And I see all these people across the United States that are doing it. And they've all got these big shops. They got 5,000-6,000 square feet or more. They've got all kinds of really badass woodworking tools, and it looks very cool. Like there's some people on the socials and on YouTube make it look really cool. And I went down that path. I followed them. I also followed them into not literally them, but into debt, into no profit, and it was all just it just didn't work. And it looked really cool, and I got a lot of YouTube followers from it, but I wasn't making any money from those followers, and I wasn't really making any money from the people here locally. It was good lessons, but my dad referred me. He'd gotten out of the roofing business and had gone into politics. That's a story for a different day that he can tell. So he's not doing roofing anymore. And a roofing friend of his has this project. He just roofed this house in a really upscale, newer style neighborhood. And the guy calls me and he says, hey, I just finished roofing this house and they've got this window and it's got some wood rot on it. It's a wood window. Can you come fix it? And I'm kind of uppity because I only restore historic stuff. And I was like, well, how old's the house? And he's like, well, it's built in, like, it was like 99 or 2001. I was like, I only work on stuff built before 1940. And he's like, he said,
Got to qualify the work, I take.
Yeah.
Qualify.
And he says, well, your dad said you'd come look at it.
Oh, no.
Oh, thanks, Dad. All right. I'll go up here and I'll look at this thing. So I drive all the way to the other side of town. It's a long ways away from where I like to be. And I get all the way up to North Oklahoma City. I look at this window, and it's a modern style wood window. It's double pane, but it's single thing, and it's 8 feet wide by 12 feet tall. It has about as much rot as my fist on the bottom of it because the sprinklers are hitting the bottom of this window. It's got about that much rot. They're like, can you fix this? And I'm like, well, I started seeing dollar signs. And I was like, oh, I can make you a new one. Because I have this whole wood shop. I can make you a brand new one. And they were like, give us a quote. So I penciled in a quote when I got back to the office, and I kind of sort of half-assed ran it through my team. And they were like, I don't know, Ty, maybe. And so anyway, I give them the quote, and they said yes like that. And I was like, man, it's like, I give them a quote for like $12,000. And they said yes like that. And I was like, man, this is going to be great. And then we built the window. Later on, the guy tells me, he's like, well, you really came in? You're like half the price of Pella.
Left so much money on the table there, Ty.
Yeah. But this is the light bulb moment. And it just bugged the hell out of me. I remember when we took this 8-foot by 12-foot window out of their house. And it's Oklahoma. And this is in, the house is like $1.2 million, $1.5 million. And Oklahoma wind is blowing everything from the outside to the inside, and they're frustrated. And then the thing didn't fit just quite right, and we're trying to make this happen. It's just like all the bad things that can go for that much rot, for that much.
Yeah.
I already had these like buckets of epoxy in my shop that I used all the time to do stuff, and I'm sitting there thinking, Ty, why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do that? And I remember thinking, you know what? I bet I could have charged them and provided massive value. I probably could have charged them $3,000, maybe $4,000 to fix the rot. They would have said yes, and it had taken me probably at most 2 days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember, I don't know where this quote has come from. I've definitely heard Tommy Mello say it, revenues for vanity, profits for sanity. And it was that bug moment that stuck in my brain that I couldn't get out, which was one, my values. Like, I really do value preservation. And I kind of was getting like, well, preservation should be more than just working on old houses. If my value system is to keep things out of the landfill and make things last longer, well, I should just do that regardless of the age of the home. And two, maybe this is more profitable than the big thing. And so that was, from that moment, I started, it was a long point to get to where I'm at today, and even to get to where we started where I'm at today. But I started like, you start like writing the ideas down in the notebook. You start whiteboarding. From that moment, I started whiteboarding. What does it look like to do this? What does it look like to build a small business that's really profitable? How would I introduce this new thing into the market? And I really just started to wrap my head around that. Basically, at that moment, it took me a couple of years to actually kind of get to where I had it kind of really worked out. That was the moment.
Yeah, and so, Ty, you're talking about looking at how you're preserving the work that's currently in place and understanding how that's a better option for a lot of these homeowners, right?
Yeah.
And making money off doing it.
Yeah, it's crazy. What I always tell people is there's a lot of things that people want to spend money on their house. This is why I tell people who are talking about franchising. People like to invest in their homes, and I get it. I do too. My wife, we're thinking about doing the, updating the master suite. We're thinking about maybe a pool, maybe redo the kitchen. You get all the kind of, what nobody ever really wants to spend money on? New windows. Mm-hmm. Nobody really wants to spend money on new windows. And if you're listening to this and you're a window and door contractor, I'm sorry. Like, nobody really wants it. It's like getting new tires. I don't really want new tires, but if I have to, I'll spend the money. And that's there are these like things where nobody really wants to spend their money on that. And so if you can find ways to add value through repair, you can really create something that's super profitable.
Yeah. So I know that there was a transitional shift that had to happen, Ty, for you to go from just the contractor mindset to now, hey, it's a franchise system. So what was the biggest mindset or operational shifts that you had to overcome before kind of running that business into what it is today, which is all over the country?
The first big one was I had a mentor that handed me the E-Myth. And I know, I'm sure you guys talk about it. Everybody talks about the E-Myth. He handed me the E-Myth. I read the E-Myth, and I walked away with listening to the E-Myth going, well, instead of running my business like a franchise, what would it look like to grow my business like a franchise? What would that be like? And that was that first mindset shift where I started thinking through, okay, for somebody else to do this, for me to kind of work myself out of a job, for me to put people in place, what are the things that I need to get done? You know, you start talking about SOPs, right? You start talking about standard operating procedures. But more than that, I started thinking about simplifying, really cleaning up and kind of pruning every service that we had offered that was not going to be executable by somebody that you could find in every single market in every single city. That was kind of the thing I kept struggling with, because we had this kind of like really cool, unique artisan historic preservation thing. And I was like, man, it has taken me years to get people to learn this trade. It's been really difficult. I'm going to have to kind of reverse engineer that and see what I can actually scale. And that's where the epoxy really started to come in and started to make sense, was it's like, I can teach people how to do this, and I can scale this. I can really build a business model that's lean and mean and profitable.
Well, one thing that you're hitting on, Ty, is you have this great idea, right? But there's only so many customers that you're going to find in your local community. If you're able to franchise this out, right, you open it up to so many more people doing the work, using your idea, and you making something on that backside, right?
Tradies, running your small business can be demanding. You got suppliers you got to work with. You're managing crews. Hell, you're chasing sales. It's a lot to take in. Listen, if you want to grow your business, you got to stop working in it and you got to start working on it. So that's where my friends at Foundation Rescue Supply come in. You're not just getting foundation repair products and waterproofing products and air quality control products. With their nationwide distribution, you're getting a partner who knows how to help you scale. And that's why I use them. The Foundation Rescue Supply team has industry knowledge that'll help make your life easier. You get the tools, the trainings, the systems that you need to move the needle. You know, you want your sales team to close more leads? Done, because they have the proven process for that. You need your crews to work smarter, not harder? Done. Their installation training will get you out there and rocking and rolling in the field. With Foundation Rescue Supply, you're not just buying materials here. You're buying a better business system that they have helped create. And you sell more, you install more, and you grow your team. So the bottom line is this: you get best industry pricing, you get field productivity on track, and you get more revenue out of everybody on your team. So this is your chance to step up, scale up, and thrive. If you are ready to make that happen, head to foundationrescuesupply.com, check out their catalog, and speak to my friends, their team, how you can take beyond the products with your company with Foundation Rescue Supply.
That's right. Yeah. And the franchise model, when done the right way, really give you the capacity to scale at ways that you couldn't do without raising a massive amount of capital from somebody. And it's not that you don't need a lot of money, and we can get into having those conversations. I can share some stuff there, but you just don't have to have that same level of money, because in a sense, and this is another book that I read that really was kind of foundational, was Customer Funded Business. In a sense, you're funding your growth through your franchisees as owner investors, and that's kind of what can help you start to kind of gain that growth that you couldn't get otherwise.
So with contractors out there who are thinking they have an idea that is able to be franchised, what is one thing that you wish someone would have told you or had you start thinking about from the start before you went down that path?
Man, so many things that come to mind, but...
And it can be more than one.
Yeah, I bet you I know what it is, Terry. Start wearing denim shirts. That's what it was. He tied up the brand perfectly.
I did.
With the beard and the denim shirt.
Yeah, that's definitely, well, yeah, you definitely got to do
Are
the
those
beard and the
yours
denim
now?
shirt. That's
Yours?
mine. That's trademark.
Yeah.
No, with that being said, the trademark. So I got really fortunate that after making a handful of mistakes for about a year when I started franchising, that before I got too far down it, I got connected with a really amazing franchise attorney that really helped me understand not only what makes a successful franchise. He had helped multiple brands, like more than like 500 brands, like take their business through franchising. But he really understood how to grow one and how to protect one legally and how to build that system from the legal side. I remember like I spent like hours upon hours, looking at websites about how to franchise your business yourself, kind of like DIY type stuff, or reading a book how to franchise your business. And this is before, I'm going to sound old because this was back in like 2020 and before ChatGPT and AI, so back in the day, you couldn't just like type into ChatGPT, write a franchise FDD, franchise disclosure document. Wouldn't recommend that now either. But I probably would have made huge mistakes if that would have been available. I probably would have really, really screwed up big time if I had access to ChatGPT. But yeah, no, that was the legal side of it and really what it takes to build one. Because once you understand the legal side of it, then you start to see like, oh, this is a lot more than I thought. And there's a lot more components to putting this together because it all starts with that legal framework and then you're building it out. And so if I understood the legal framework first, like really clearly, then it would have helped me understand more what I was going to need to do to pull this off.
And what you're hitting on is the idea that you didn't want to reinvent the wheel. You just wanted to make that wheel work for you. So you reached out and you found someone that knew what they were doing and let them guide you through that process.
Well, that's what I wish I would have done initially.
We'll cut that part out, Ty.
Yeah, no, I mean, I spent my first 12 months like spinning my wheels working with somebody who didn't know home service. So I spent a little while trying to think about, well, kind of messing around with the DIY option. And I did get out of that pretty quick because I realized I'm not an attorney. And then I got with someone who was a little bit more what I thought was going to be cost effective, but they had not done home service. And in the world of franchising, most people understand franchising because of restaurants. We all know that like Wendy's and KFC, we all know those are franchises. And that's what most of the franchise industry over the last several decades was built around. And so that's where a lot of like the intellectual, like the thought comes from. And that's what that guy's experience was. And so he had kind of helped me put this together, but it was not ready for franchising in a home service way. I just got, honestly, to be fair, I just got lucky. I'm following this other attorney on LinkedIn, and I'm just really enjoying his content. He's just a super smart guy. He's honest. I'm watching his content. I'm thinking all to myself, I probably could have never afforded him. He's way too, But I would comment every once in a while and say, hey, I really appreciate you posting that or whatever. I comment on LinkedIn or I comment on YouTube. And one day he just reaches out to me. He asked me to be on a podcast and share my story because I'm franchised by this point. I already got like my first 2 franchises going. And I get on his podcast and we get done. It was a great story. He was like, Ty, can I help you out with anything? I really appreciate you sharing your story. And I was like, yeah, can you give me a little bit of advice? I mean, I'm always too worried you were too expensive, but I got you for free right now. I just gave you 40 minutes of my time. Can you give me 20 minutes of yours? He's like, sure. And I shot it over to him an email real quick. And he quickly was like, Ty, this person that wrote your franchise agreement is a really, really good guy. It's also going to put you in a lot of legal trouble. This is not built for franchising. And he was like, these are the things that you need to do. You need to do this, go here, do this, do these things. And he's like, if you do these things and you keep on doing what you're doing, there's no reason you shouldn't see massive growth. It wasn't as much as I thought, and it would have saved me a hell of a lot of money if I'd have started there.
Yep.
And he helped me get my business packaged up in a way that I could actually grow it. If I would have never spoke to him, and his name's Charles Internicola, if I would have never spoke to him, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. I just wouldn't have gained traction because the way he helped me understand my business and how to franchise it, I never made it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. You are a little against the grain, Ty. Bad wood pun, but I got a worse one coming up because I love it because, contractors, we're known for our big trucks, right? We like our big trucks. And you took this business model, and every contractor dreams of rolling around in like a Nissan Cube. No. Is that what you guys are using now?
Well, to be fair, so we started out with Kia Souls. Because my idea was like, can we fit this in the smallest thing possible? Because I started thinking about, I heard this word called unit economics. And this console, so you break your business down, whether you can think about it by hour and you can think about it by truck and you can think about it by person, but you start thinking about like these units. And I fell in love with this word unit economics. And I started thinking about how do we make this thing as profitable as we can per unit? So we're counting every single vehicle that's on the road. And rather than build a business to my ego, let's build a business to profitability. And so it was like, when I first had this whiteboarded, I had this idea we're going to have, not the big trucks, but the big vans. And my business partner came to me and he was like, Ty, those things are like 50 grand. And then you got to outfit them. You got to do all that stuff. And we're thinking about how do we get franchisees to put as many of these on the road as they can, because they're only going to be worth so much money. I mean, one person can only do so much work, right? So there's only so many hours in the day. And so we're kind of reverse engineering this. And it's like, well, if our goal is to get as many of these on the road, what if we made it more cost effective, more profitable to get as many on the road? So he asked me this question. He's like, what's the smallest thing you could put it in? And I was like, ooh. And then we just started kind of brainstorming and looking at the smallest vehicles with the largest size. I will say we have switched, Will, so I'm not going a little bit against here, but now we are implementing the Maverick as kind of our new go-to.
Took the soul out of the business.
I know.
Took the soul, Ty.
But he's a maverick in the business.
Because I'm a Maverick. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. No, it came down to cost. The cost to upfit one to the Maverick, basically the same. And we get the same fuel economy. Our franchisees, who a lot of them are kind of environmentally geared, like the option of hybrid. So it just made sense, and it was going to keep them around the same cost.
Yeah, but I love that because it is a challenging thought, Ty, because it's like, by the way, you're not going to ride around in an F-250. You're going to ride around in a Kia Soul. And now, of course, they're Mavericks. So, that pushes against the stereotypical kind of thought process about being a home service brand.
Yeah. One thing I'll say to that, though, is it kind of comes in, I talked earlier about identifying your ideal customer. Mm-hmm. Well, you need to identify your ideal franchisee, your ideal franchise candidate.
Yep. Perfect segue. That's what I was going to ask is like, hey, like you're not looking for the stereotypical contractor, I'm assuming, right? And like, what are some of the qualities you guys are identifying? Because you guys have this neighbor culture aspect there that just seems to attract like amazing people and franchise. And I follow them on social media, and they're just like, they're genuinely good people.
Yeah.
So what kind of qualities are you looking for there?
I hate to be like this. I am not interested in attracting anybody with construction experience.
Terry, you're out.
We're all awesome. Love all of us. I have it. You guys have it. Don't watch any of y'all as franchisees, to be honest. You guys got too many ideas and you want to change everything up and all that. So none of them have contracting backgrounds. And what's really cool, and this going back to, when I got started back in the old days before AI and now, is that you have a lot of people who are looking for something else. For those of you listening that are contractors drinking a beer right now, the whole world wants, at least all of the United States is starting to see what we do and starting to see there's value in it. So you can listen to a podcast like Acquiring Minds, and there are MBA graduates who are raising search funds so they can go around and cold call business owners. So you got women and men that are, between the ages of 35 and 45, raising a couple $100,000 just to go around and find a business they can buy. And then they've raised additional money to buy that business when they get there. So one, I'd tell all of you guys, whether or not you ever think about franchising or just one day, build your business to sell, Built to Sell, one of my other favorite books, because people will want your business if you're running it well and if you're running it in a way that they can step in. So you got this whole ecosystem. Just like I said, just listen to a couple episodes of Acquiring Minds and you'll learn about what's out there and what's happening. And they want into boring businesses, which a lot of times I listen to a podcast about somebody buying a crane business, right? Like that's what's happening right now. So you have this whole group of people who want out of where they're at. And I talk to dozens of people every single month who are thinking about starting their own business. And none of them are ever in construction. They're in sales and marketing at Google and Amazon. Yeah. And one of our franchisees was a marketing director at UPS. Like right now, 40% of our franchise owners have an MBA. Like that's who wants in to this space. And the other good thing about it is these people, what you love about them is they come ready to make an investment and they come with an amazing business mind. So for me as a franchisor, what I get is a level of intellectual capital that I could have never hired as managers. Like I can't afford any of these people as managers. Most of them are leaving jobs where they're making mid to high 100s, and now they're going to become part of our franchise team. And so you're just talking about a level of sophistication and business knowledge that we get to use to build this thing together. Like I said, if I was hiring a manager, I mean, we've all hired managers, project managers, supervisors, whatever. We know the struggles with that. I'm not saying that somebody coming out of the business world doesn't have struggles, but it's a different level.
Now, Ty, you touched on everyone's looking for that boring business, right? But what does that mean?
I think what it means when I talk about it is what they're looking for is businesses that have a reliable source of income, a reliable customer base. They're never going away and they're profitable. So it's not anything flashy. Like I was kind of explaining, like, the business that it's a crane business. It's like an equipment, like a crane rental business. Like, goodness, like there's no automating that. There's no AIing that. You're going to have cranes, and somebody's been running a crane rental business for 2 decades or 3 decades.
Yeah.
They don't have much of a legacy plan. They don't have the kids stepping into the business. And there's just so much money out there in private equity that want to get into that. Just into anything like that that's got that reliable source of income that's not going away and that's got good solid numbers and a good solid EBITDA.
Yeah. So Ty, what I love about this too is because we see so many contractors want to get into like, hey, I'm going to franchise my business. They don't have systems and processes in place. They assume their franchisees are like them, contractors.
Yeah.
And they undertap that market, or they undervalue that customer. And then, of course, they don't know how to scale it financially and legally. Besides those three, like what, in your opinion, are the other biggest mistakes home service brands make in trying to franchise?
Man, really, the ones that you just said are probably the big three: the legal, who you're going to be targeting. The other one I would probably say is capital invest, like just how much it's going to cost you. I think that there's a lot of bad information on the internet that will, and then there's people that'll tell you like, oh, I can franchise your business for X number of dollars, maybe for $50,000 or $100,000, and it costs considerably more. And then the other is that it's a mindset shift. You're going to have to be prepared because the moment that you franchise your business, now you own and operate a completely different, not only legal entity, which you do, but now it's a whole different business model. You're no longer I am no longer in wood rot repair. I'm a marketing company. I'm a coaching company. I'm a PR. Like that's what I am now. And our franchisees are in that business. And so a lot of times you have to kind of come to the realization you're either going to have to make sure that you have a person in place to operate that business that you've built, your prototype, if you will. You're going to have someone operating that for you, or you're going to have some sort of partner in selling and developing the franchise, because you're not going to be able to do both things, because you got to make both of them healthy, because your prototype isn't going to be much of a prototype if you bail on it to do franchises and it sucks and the numbers suck on it, because you're going to use that as your justification for franchising. Or if you don't support your franchises because you're too busy running around town putting out fires, you're not going to be very good at supporting your franchisees. And so those are the most difficult part.
Yeah, and I know you see this, Ty. There's so many people that I run into, and they're like, oh, I can franchise this. And it's like, well, your numbers suck. Like, who would want to buy it? And it'd be like, well, after I franchise, it'll be better. And it's like, no. It don't work that way, bro.
Get a little in the weeds of, just expectations when you're franchising. The only way in home service you are going to get anybody to buy your franchise, the only way is if you can produce some numbers that people want to see. And so legally speaking, when you're franchising, you just can't say how much money you make or anything like that. You have to produce what we call an Item 19 financial representations. And this goes in this big document that's required by the FTC. And then you can only say what's in there. So if all you disclose is top line revenue, that's all you can ever talk about. You can say, we did $1 million last year. And they say, well, how much money did you make? If you tell them anything, you violated federal regulations. So you just say, well, it's just $1 million. That's just all I can say. The more you disclose, the more likely you are to sell. This is what I had learned from that franchise attorney. I I just didn't know any better. I was just disclosing top-line revenue. That's it. Just top-line revenue. I thought, that should work. And it worked for 2, but that was because I personally knew them and they believed in what I was doing. But fortunately, we had a solid, profitable business model. It is a low revenue. So like on a per territory basis, we're doing less than 400,000 at the time, but super, super profitable. And so when he looked at that, he was like, Ty, dude, can you just give me basically a financial statement? Take out anything that we don't want to disclose. You just can't talk about it. But let's produce a financial statement that we can put in here. Basically just kind of augmented P&L, if you will. And that's what we did because we had great, solid, profitable numbers. That is why we were able to grow, because without that, like, who's buying a business if they don't know how much money they can make? You got to be able to show that. So with that being said, you can't fix it once it's in the air. You got to go back to historical data and look at those numbers and make sure those numbers are profitable. And, most of what I've seen, you have at least got to be showing after, so whatever kind of fees you're charging the franchisee, if you royalties and all the different kind of things you're going to charge them or make them spend money on, you're going to at least have to be showing 20% net profit, at least after all disclosed expenses. You'll at least have to be at 20%. If you're not 20%, you shouldn't even be considering this. You should be considering getting your business to profitability at better than 20%.
Yeah. And I see that so much. And it's like, wait a minute, what's your top or bottom line? It's like, we're making about 4%.
Yeah.
But it'll get better on the other side. It's like, no.
Yeah, because to run a sustainable franchise system, probably, minimally, you're probably going to be charging them around 8% for between your royalties and your what they call a brand development fund, which is like a pot of money that everybody puts in collectively to spend together. So at least like those two things combined are typically going to be 8%. So if you're at 4% and then you charge them at like, how are they going to make any money at that? That's not going to fly.
Ty, where do you see franchising going in the next few years? What trends do you think are going to pop up?
Well, I think home service, anything that's related to the repair and improvement of people's houses is going, that's where right now franchise growth is at. It is where the industry is going. So right now is a great time. There's going to be market saturation. There's already market saturation in a lot of kind of categories like painting. I mean, the painting is a super saturated area. Like window washing, it's pretty saturated. It doesn't mean that somebody can't break into that space, but you're going to have a real unique go-to-market strategy that's different than what else is out there on the market. Things that help people fix their houses. I mean, America has, the average home was built in 1981, or the average home is 44 years old. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
And they're just getting older. We're not replenishing the inventory at the rate it's aging. And so taking care of old houses or just aging houses in general is definitely where the industry is going. And that's potentially where franchising in the home service space is going as well.
No. Well, Ty, listen, you are the man. I know I picked on you about like budding entrepreneur and all that stuff. I mean, you've done such an amazing job. I think it was a little over a year ago you were on our podcast, very early episode.
Yeah.
And I just loved your concept, loved your product. We've had tons of beers together off of the podcast, obviously. At the, what's that place we typically meet at? The Powerhouse or something?
Oh, Powerhouse. Yeah, man. Well, now I'm on the other side of town. You and I both are on the other side of town. We're going to have to pick a spot closer by.
Yeah.
We'll go over to Prairie or something.
I got the tree house here. Terry and I are talking about bringing a kegerator in. Like this new studio has totally become a man cave. And I've got a good friend of mine that's going to rent an office here. And he's like, I haven't even told my wife about the concept of this office. Happy to have you here. But I'm just insanely proud of you for what you've done, the growth, but not only that, purpose-driven growth. Mm-hmm. And it emulates in that. I don't think we talked about that enough. I think we could always I would love to have you and a few other thought leaders on like another episode of just talking about like, dude, it's insanely important to have a purpose and a message in the business, even if it's franchising or whatever, solopreneur, whatever. You've also helped a lot of folks that I know personally over phone calls, emails about their concepts. So how do people get a hold of you?
Man, my email is Ty, T-Y, at Preservan, Preservan.com. Or honestly, I'm on literally every social media. You can just usually, as my kids do, They regularly just Google Ty McBride and see if they can find me. You can find me. TikTok. I'm probably most active on Instagram and LinkedIn, so search for me there. And I'm the son and grandson of people in the construction industry, and it excites me what is available and out there for those of you that are running really great businesses, and how you can actually finally get people in this industry can kind of I think finally get what's due for them as the economy in the United States changes to more of where people providing services are creating massive value for themselves and their families. And so I'm excited to help anybody out with that I can.
Yeah, I love it. And Ty, I appreciate everything you do for the community. Terry, I appreciate you, buddy. Even for the first studio called Jitters, but also Terry helped me work on the studio, so I got to give him a little credit there. He brought beer today. Thank you, Terry. To you listeners out there, thank you for listening to another episode of Beers with Contractors, and we will see you next week. I'm pumped. Let's go. See you guys.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.